Welcome back to the Daily Poem here on the Close Reads Podcast Network. I'm David Kern. Today is December 13th, 2019. Earlier this week, on Tuesday, on the 10th, it was Emily Dickinson's birthday. She was born December 10th, 1830. She is one of the more popular, well-remembered, beloved, I guess all those words are just as if it looked like I was just looking at a thesaurus. But the point is, she is one of the most beloved poets in American literature, in the history of American letters. And of course, it being the week of her birthday, I wanted to share one of her poems with you. I've shared several before, and rightly so. But what I'm going to do today is grab my Every Man's Pocket Library collection of Dickinson's poems. They have those beautiful little pocket books with the nice dust jackets on them and the really nice cloth bound. They're great pocket-sized books. It's great for taking on a trip or whatever. They have a lot of different collections, seasonal collections, holiday collections, and of course, collections by various poets. And what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to open up whatever poem I open up to is the one that I'm going to read on the podcast today. I have not done this ahead of time, so I don't know what I'm about to read. I have not prepared for this, for better or for worse. To my editor, Logan, I apologize for any mistakes I make along the way. But here we go. I'm opening my Emily Dickinson Every Man's Pocket Library collection, and I'm just kind of flipping through the pages so I don't just open right to the middle. And here we go. Okay, this is a poem with the first line, "I should not dare to leave my friend." And it is from, let's see which collection it's from. It's from her collection, The Works of Love. If you have this collection, it's on page 82. It's listed as poem number 54. It goes like this. See if I can do it justice. I should not dare to leave my friend because if he should die while I was gone and I, too late, should reach the heart that wanted me, if I should disappoint the eyes that hunted so to see and could not bear to shut until they noticed me, if I should stab the patient faith, so sure I'd come, it listening went to sleep, telling my tardy name. My heart would wish it broke before, since breaking then were useless as next morning's sun, where midnight frosts had lain. So I don't know this poem well. I have to admit it. I opened up to one that I am not familiar with. I'm sure I've read most of her poems, I think. So I've read it before, but I've never studied it in depth. But it's interesting that for a poet who has this reputation as being kind of reclusive, we get here a pretty interesting poem about friendship, a theme which she did address from time to time. One of the like death and family and love, something she came back to, as I guess most poets do. This poem has a lot of the customary things we know in Dickinson, the four-line stanzas and the dashes and all the things that kind of make her work a little bit disorienting when you first come to it, unless you're really familiar with her. But in reading it here, it feels to me like it's got a little bit more of a song-like pace to it. There's certainly helped by a lot of the repetition. There's repetition of words, repetition of entire phrases, and more than half of the lines end with a pause, with that dash that kind of ruptures your pace as you're going, your approach to the poem. So the poet's friend is dying, and she's afraid that he will die while she is gone. And that if she comes back too late, she imagines her friend dying and his eyes hunting for her to come into the room. If I should disappoint the eyes that hunted so to see and could not bear to shut until they noticed me. So if she arrives too late, even though her friend is hunting for her and doesn't want to allow himself to die, to pass on without seeing her. If she should stab the patient faith. Now, there's some violence in that image. So on the one hand, there's the patient having faith, faith that Dickinson's going to come back. And then there's, the idea that he's being patient. And then there is literally the concept of the patient himself, someone who is dying. So there's all these different meanings in that line, in addition to the stabbing concept. If I should stab the patient faith, so sure I'd come, so sure I'd come. It listening, went to sleep, telling my tardy name. And she says, if all that happened, everything that happened in the second and third stanza, if that happened, my heart would wish it broke before, since breaking then were useless as next morning's sun, where midnight frosts had lain. What do you make of that last line? Since breaking then were useless. It's not helpful. There's no point in my heart breaking. At that point, be as useless as next morning's sun, where midnight frosts had lain. So I suppose even though the sun comes, the frost has already done its job, right? The frost has already come and killed, perhaps killed whatever's growing or whatever was still lingering in the season. At the end of fall, or depending where you live, mid-fall, or depending where you live, early fall, plant life, whatever's in your garden, things are lingering and hanging on, and then that frost comes. And hopefully you've harvested what you could. Hopefully you've reaped what you sowed. Hopefully you didn't leave anything on the vine. Because once the frost has come, that's the end of those things. Even if the sun comes out the next day, it's useless to preserve the life of those things. And so at that point, she can't do anything about it anymore. And so she says, I should not dare to leave my friend. Because there's a limited amount of time that there is going to be here. And I need to harvest that time. I need to use that time to the best of my abilities. That's what I think this poem is getting at. And she's a very good poet, huh? Again, you may need to tell me where I'm wrong and where I'm right. I have not spent a lot of time with this poem before. I don't actually remember specifically reading it, although I'm quite sure that I did. She's just wrote a lot of great poetry. Well, with that, I'll read it one more time. I should not dare to leave my friend, because if he should die while I was gone, and I, too late, should reach the heart that wanted me, if I should disappoint the eyes that hunted so to see, and could not bear to shut until they noticed me, if I should stab the patient faith, so sure I'd come, it listening, went to sleep, telling my tardy name, my heart would wish it broke before, since breaking then were useless as next morning's sun, where midnight frosts had lain. This has been the Daily Poem. Thanks so much for listening. I will be back on Monday with another poem for you.